Hi everyone, good afternoon. How's everyone going today? I know those who are in the UK, there's the big storm these days, and I tried to go out yesterday and was really surprised. From the inside, you don't really see how much wind you have outside, and then when I went out, it was like, wow. Hope everyone is keeping safe. I see on the chat we already have Metamurai, Yinch, and Luke. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing? And congrats to Yinch. I saw your tweets today. I think it was today. You put a tweet about your company um, uh, having the ski demo in a big Decathlon store, right? I don't know how you pronounce Decathlon in English. Oh, I'm actually wondering how am I supposed to pronounce that? Decathlon? That's ridiculous, no? um, Yin should say you're staying indoor. Yeah, you're completely right. It must be even worse outside of London. I feel that we're kind of protected by all these big buildings, especially where I am. I am surrounded by just very big and old buildings. So that's quite solid, right? So unless you're in the street, once you're inside the building, that's actually okay. Luke, you say you went to the shop earlier and you got soaked in just a few minutes. Oh yeah, it's raining where you are? Here it's not completely raining all the time. It's like big rain and then lots of wind and then a moment of quiet peace, even a bit of sunshine before it starts again. It's really odd. Yesterday, at some point, I saw that it was kind of quiet outside, and there were a bit of sunshine, and I thought, ooh, maybe I could go for a walk. And I went out to do my ID picture because I need to renew my passport. I think it's actually I'm going to have a few days um, where my passport won't be valid anymore. But yeah, that's kind of an emergency thing. I need to get it done ASAP. And so I went to do my ID photo and was like, we'll see if my hair can actually survive the wind. It went okay, I think. But yeah, no more than just a few minutes to go from here to the station or to somewhere very close, right? Short walks are okay, but if you get a bit further outside and spend a bit more time, more than a few minutes, it's a big risk these days, right? Lots of wind, sudden rain, better not be outside. Look, you say you're by the coast, and so it has been crazy here with the wind and rains. I can imagine that, yeah. I remember last time I was on the coast, it was a few months ago. It was in November. I went to Brighton for a few days, and I was so surprised by the amount of wind you have just on a normal day. Normal day, normal evening, and you just get so much wind on your face. And at the end of the day, you have kind of headaches when you're not used to that. So I can imagine now with the storm, it must be just crazy. I think the UK and France have been really um, the most attacked by the by the storm. Um, you know, I think Zappa on the chat said that for him in Eastern Europe, there weren't that much of a storm yet. But I think it's moving, right? I think it's supposed to hit Denmark and Netherlands over the weekend. So yeah, big storm. Has anyone seen yesterday all the fuzz around this guy that has a live stream feed and channel that is just about planes? I can't remember the name of this channel though. Um, I think it wasn't really big, and suddenly everyone started talking about it, and it was basically this guy commenting live at Heathrow how people and how pilots were good and were kind of trying to land the plane with the wind, Big Jet TV. Thanks, Yinch. Yes, Big Jet TV. And it was so impressive and kind of mesmerizing to see that, because you see how the pilots are really struggling, and you have this guy that is live on the internet just being like cheering for them. It was actually pretty nice, pretty positive. I didn't stay very long. I turned in just for a few minutes, and I was like, oh, that's what everyone is talking about suddenly. I think I saw it on the morning, and then for the rest of the day, I could only see that on Twitter. I mean, everyone was just retweeting about it. Hey, Jenster, how are you? I'm doing good, thanks. I'm actually exhausted. I don't know if you can see that. I feel I'm saying that every stream these days, but yeah, I've been quite tired this week, so I'm going to do a stream that is a bit more chill out than we will normally do for Create stream, right? Sometimes I prepare some tutorials and some projects to do, and oh, I can't when I'm tired. I actually said that on the Discord a few days ago. No, yesterday. I was trying to find some inspiration online for some new project to do and some stuff to do on the stream, and it just, I don't know, when you're looking for inspiration and you're tired, it feels like your brain is just too tired every time you see something that could excite you. You know, you're like, oh, that could be quite fun to do and quite interesting. And then you have part of your brain that says, I'm too tired for that. And so you can't really get excited by anything just because you feel just exhausted, right? So nothing really inspires you much. But a part of that, I think it's just that I have had some trouble sleeping over the past few weeks, and I had some busy weekends where I had quite long to-do lists. So I just need a few weekends where I just chill out, don't do much, and we're getting there. I have a lighter to-do list for this weekend, so hopefully next weekend will be completely free, so I can just rest on the couch for most of the weekend. Finger crossed, because I just need that right now. Just need to spend a few days not doing anything. What about you, Dunster? How's the day going in the week? I haven't been streaming last week, and before that we have an AMA, so that means that I haven't checked out on anyone for at least 3 weeks, right? So how's the almost a month has passed? So as I saw just before, Yinch has some news, and that's pretty cool. I think you mentioned it already on the Discord, but you have your VR uh, game, your VR game, yeah, your ski game that is now available at Decathlon shop in the UK, in Surrey. Is it London? I think it's kind of Londonery. That's pretty cool. It's funny because in the UK, Decathlon is like a nice shop, I guess, right? I don't know exactly how it's perceived, but it's just a big shop with lots of sports things, right? So you have clothing, you have equipment for sports. But in France, when I grew up, for me, Decathlon is something slightly different, because it's like an activity, especially when you're not living in Paris or in such a big city. You're a bit outside, you have this big Decathlon shop. They are really massive. And so when I was a kid, on Saturday, I remember that was the big activity of the day, going to this shop, because you can spend just hours walking around, looking at people trying things. It's just yeah, like an activity where you're having fun by going to the shop. It's a bit like going to IKEA, right? You go there, you get inspired. Well, that's the same with Decathlon for me, where I used to go there and spend the afternoon there, because it's such a big shop where you just, yeah, you look at some sports, you play around with some equipment that is here on display, and you always leave the shop with a few things, even if you didn't plan to buy anything, just because you can find so many small things in this shop that are for every day and not just for specific sports. So it can be also quite cheap. So yeah, it's kind of it's a very different perception maybe that I have. I don't know about here in the UK. I don't think that may be the same because um, there's not that many of these shops. I mean, I know there are a few in central London, maybe two in central London, maybe two or three outside. But I'm not really sure that's such a big deal outside of the London area. So I'm really excited to see that you have some experience, some more experiences to try there, like some VR experiences. I think that's a good fit, right? Because you can't really simulate too much the experience of a sport to to just like to push people to try it out and to buy stuff and just to yeah to have some excitement to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy some skiing. So I think that's pretty nice, so having some in-shop experiences like that, I like it. What's everyone planned for the weekend so far? Since everyone is staying inside and not necessarily going out into the storm, what have you planned to do? Any work, any project, anything? I know that for me, the big thing that's on my to-do list is um, it's a talk that I have to prepare. So I have until the end of the month to prepare a 20-minute talk and record it and edit it. So I want to get this done as soon as possible just to be able to have some weekends to relax entirely. Yinch, you're still working. I know. Well, I hope that you're still having some time just for yourself and to relax and you're not overworking, because I know you're always working on the weekend and you always have some stuff to do, and you've been quite busy recently, right? Over the past few months, I saw that you were so you're rising right now, and that's super cool everything you're doing, but you're also really really busy. So yeah. Look, you say you're taking this weekend to relax for a change. What do you usually do if you're not relaxing? Do you usually have some stuff to do? Are you having some me time with gaming? What are you playing? I want to know. I wish I had the time to play. I feel that I haven't had the time to play video games for a long time, and that's why I do these streams every month. That is about trying out a new video game, just because I haven't had the time at all to play much games, just on my free time and outside of the stream. Well, I've been watching other streamers playing games, but that's not the same, right? Junster, you're going to chill this weekend also after a long week. Yeah. Well, I think that after this stream, I'm going to also relax and maybe get into my talk tomorrow. Over the past weekend, I had some stuff to do. I am an assessor for something in the UK called Innovate UK. Anyway, so that's to review some application for some grants from the government, and so I've been spending just my weekends for the past few weeks spending the weekend reviewing project, and while it's quite interesting, it's also very draining. You have like usually I do 2 to 3 applications a day, more, yeah, it's more about 3 or 4 actually, but it's very draining because you're on it for the entire day and you have this way of thinking you have to really get into. So I'm so glad that I've submitted all the applications on, I think it was on Sunday last week, end of the day. So now this weekend I have, over time I have less and less things on my weekend to-do list, and that's so good. That's just the best, just to see the amount of things I have to do decrease. Look, you say you usually focus on project, but you just need to stop for a change. And you've been playing Far Cry 2 this week. It's old but really fun. all games are really fun. That's what I love. I usually don't play the game as they just released. Sometimes I'm tempted, but quite often it's just overpriced. And then it's good to see some patches going through, and then a few years after getting into it with a different kind of expectations. Yinch, you say Innovate UK, how interesting. Yeah, I have been. It's funny because I actually have experience on both sides, both as an applicant and as an assessor. So I, it's interesting. I kind of understand some kind really quickly some kind of companies and the situation, and I know the traps. But when I did my own Innovate UK applications, I tried to incorporate that and to use what I knew about what assessors sees. But back then I didn't have the experience I have now, so I have less experience reviewing a project for them. And yeah, over time you kind of the first few one you're like, oh, I think I understand, and you actually need a lot of them to really get it. And afterwards, so I failed both the application I've made, and then afterward I realized that I completely understand now, seeing a huge amount of application. Yeah, I completely get it, why I didn't receive the grants. And it's just not for my category of startup, not this type of startup. And it's just, I think they really need to kind of change the communication on who this is for. And I think they kind of try to do that by increasing the minimum amount of the project, which means that if you're a small startup bootstrapping, you usually don't have the money to cover for the match funding to reach this level of project budget. So yeah, I guess that's a way of saying, okay, that's not for the very early stage project or not for bootstrap startups. But yeah, it's it's kind of a love-hate relationship with Innovate UK. I really love what they're doing, and there are some things that they're doing right. But there are other things like you're like, I wish there were more communication and I could just bring more input to that. But just being able to take part of this process and use my experience of the tech industry to actually help review a project. I think it's stimulating, it's interesting. So that's a nice thing to do. It took me ages to actually get into their system, and now I regularly have projects to review. Obviously, I didn't review any of the grants I applied for, right? You're immediately removed from the process. That makes sense. Yinch, have you ever applied to these grants? I've done the process also when I was in France a few times, applying for grants. I felt it was easier maybe in France, but maybe just me. But I felt that there were a few grants that were for startups that didn't necessarily need to have this match funding, so it was more friendly to very early stage companies. But I think then there were a gap, and that's where the UK kind of is good at, is having this support for the startup that are not just getting started but slightly more advanced, to do some project. So you really have to do a specific project to get this grant. It's not to fund day-to-day activity, it's really to fund something specific, which is quite interesting. Also, I also had the opportunity to assess different kind of size of project and topics, so you don't just see the same type of project. So yeah, that's quite an interesting thing. You should say you only applied as a co-applicant with another organization, but you're usually not big enough. That's a big problem, right? And the problem is you have this big, kind of a big basket, right? So you have this um, uh, application, this, how do you say that, competition. You have these competitions that have really wide criteria, but then really quickly you see that there is a huge gap between the small startup that's going to technically fit into the criteria but is never going to have a project solid enough to really compete against a large organization that is already all in place, that has partners, that have money, that can, do bigger projects and more impactful projects. So that's very hard to compete, and that's why I say, small startups, that's not really a good fit for them. Even though you think, oh, that's kind of almost free money, and then when you understand how it works, you realize that maybe not. And even afterward, my co-founder and I, we thought, okay, now that you have more experience with the grants, maybe you better understand, and maybe it would make sense to reapply to something, but it just doesn't make sense, just because for the size of the company it just wouldn't make sense. And also because of this match funding thing, sometimes, that's what I told to someone I mentored recently who was looking into grants. I told her, look into the financial and try to see if it's really worth it, in a sense that, okay, if you're applying to a grant, you have to have the match funding. So let's say they are, you submit a 100K project and they finance 70K. You have to come up with, the entire amount of money to pay to advance, and then they reimburse you. So you have to take that in consideration, but also to take in consideration that if most of your expenses are about your own salary and your team salaries, then, and that you're not usually paying yourself, for example, you have to have the money to start paying before getting the money back. But also you need to think, if you remove what you're actually putting from your own pocket, what is not going to be reimbursed to you, plus the taxes you're going to pay, does it make sense? Do you actually get some money in, or are you just equals to what you would get if you wouldn't have this money but wouldn't also spend the money? And that's some questions to ask, because when you're a small structure, you need to make the calculation for you. Look, great experience to get knowledge about how grants work. I've always been interested in them. Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Because you think, oh, grants, free money to support innovation, but innovation, usually real innovation, means risks. And whether it is venture capital, institutional investment, or grants through governmental money, they want to de-risk at the maximum every investment, which makes sense. I mean, we're talking about investment, right? So I don't know, I feel like there is still a gap in the market and in the UK, but not only, just to finance real innovation. Things that are risky by nature because it is new. And so yes, you may not have figured out entirely your market. You are far from reaching product market fit because you're starting ground zero, and you need first to develop the technology to see if it can actually work. There is a need to support like the very innovative projects, because we are always going through all these kind of opportunities that are a good idea, but then when you look at it, it doesn't really apply really well to you, right? Yinch, yes, the holistic, big picture net effect is not immediately obvious. I'm always wary of the authority the investors get over how you make decisions. You lose flexibility and become answerable to projections, which are super tricky for bleeding edge tech. That's true, yes. It's true, and that's why you have to choose your investors. And so we always talk about investors doing due diligence on your startup, which is part of the process. But having yourself a due diligence process to evaluate the investors and understand if they are more hands-on investors or hands-off, if they just give you the money, let you manage your thing. And it also depends on the situation of the company. When things are going well, I guess it's easier to be hand-off and just to say, okay, I'm managing my startup, leave me alone. When things are not going so well, it's a bit harder, right? So you need to think about the relationship you will have with them. But you are accountable to some people now. So when you're building a company, you're a founder, so you are in charge, you make the decisions, and that's your company. So you can, if you want to change some things, if you want to change your focus, your priorities, you make the call. But once you have investors, you have to kind of report to them. So it can be super useful to have people kind of pushing you in some direction. People to be accountable to. Well, people to report to and give you feedback, and you know that maybe they can help you with hiring, or maybe they can help you from their experience. It can bring lots of value, but in the same time, it can also become a difficult relationship to manage. So it's something to think about when you're getting external investment. My co-founder and I, we thought about that for a long time, and when we started the company initially, we had a different type of target audience back then, and so we wanted to raise money to go to the next step. Instead, we actually pivoted and changed our business model. But initially, we wanted to have investors on board, and so especially with my experience of investment and getting to know VCs, I had quite a good network in the UK and in Europe. So we thought, yeah, let's go this road. It didn't really go as planned, but also we didn't push it too much. So we had a bunch of meetings. We were a bit disappointed by the meetings we had. So we knew that we didn't just want money. We actually wanted to have people who can introduce us to specific companies or to a specific sector. So people who already had invested in this ecosystem, who knew how it worked, that could actually help us, because while we have the technical expertise, we didn't have back then the domain expertise. We didn't have a big network. So we needed to build that. And so while raising money, we really wanted to have investors who got the space. And we never really find that, when we spoke to people, to investors, they put us in the wrong box, but also they didn't really have this support that we wanted, and so that's why we decided to stop fundraising and to find something else instead, to do something differently, just because we didn't want to have on our board and in our cap table investors that weren't really 100% convinced about what we were doing and didn't really understand it. So we wanted to build this platform, and yeah, they kind of were in two different directions, and it didn't really work out in this direction. But yeah, we stopped fundraising quite early, just because we had our expectation, we didn't find the right partner, and we just thought, we don't want to have the wrong people on board. We don't want to work and to get money from people we don't want to work with. So we just decided to stop that and listen to the other feedback we had and pivot instead. Yinch, the balance of risk is a very gray area, especially in tech. Expectations are also high. Yeah, especially these days. It's crazy when you see the amount raised by startups. I mean, it must put such pressure on the founders when you have such a big seed round. The rounds are getting bigger, but you have less and less startup getting funded. And so that means that you really need to reach your target faster and faster. And I don't think that's necessarily very healthy, but that must be a tremendous amount of stress on them. I remember seeing the Sketchfab founder a few days after they go purchased. Oh, really? How are they doing? He was scheduled for an interview. Okay. He looked grey. I know. Yeah, that must have been quite of a ride, right? You say I thought he would be up here. Well, maybe he was just exhausted because sometimes when you're acquired, you go through months and months of meetings. It can take a lot of time. So I don't know how long the process was, but if he was in the process for a very long time and then suddenly just bombarded by lots of interviews and public things to do, he must just have been extremely tired. I mean, when you sell your company, so I haven't been through that. Hopefully soon, but we'll see. But I can imagine that it's not immediate because potentially in your deal you can't leave the company before X amount of time, which means that, well, yeah, technically you have sold your company, but even if now it's public, which means that you've signed the contract and everything is has been agreed already. Where it may still take some time because you may have a huge amount of work to just potentially integrate with your acquirer or do some work for them before you can actually walk out. I think he is a techie too and was not thrilled at how much onboarding and new employment records to migrate system and payroll and servers and contract. Yeah, the bigger you are, the more complex it is, right? Who are you talking about? Is it what's his name? I actually met one of the founders. Uh, the only founder? I don't know. How many founders do we have there? Let me check. Sketchfab. Sketchfab founders. Okay, yeah, so the three co-founders. I've met Alban in France years ago, like a very long time ago, before he created Sketchfab. It's funny, it's like it was like a friend of a friend. So yeah, I've been following him on social media for a very long time, and that's pretty cool what they've managed to do with the platform. It's really fantastic. But I can imagine that it must be a lot of work to, just bring a company from a very early days to then the acquisition to a larger entity. And I think they grew to quite a lot of people. So yeah, I can imagine that it must have been such a process to sell. Hopefully, I'll get more insight at some point to share with you on that because I'm trying to sell the company too, and yeah, it takes time and it's so frustrating because when you're a startup, you actually are used to go fast, and sometimes you're actually building your startup because you want things to go faster than it would in another company. I've actually put the cat out of the bag this week. Earlier this week, I shared some visual just saying, "Hey, we're trying to sell the company. If anyone is interested." I don't know how well it works. I need to check the LinkedIn post. As usual, when you're sharing on different platforms, you can't really keep track of all the numbers on all the platforms. But yeah, I need to check this out. Maybe I should actually also put some kind of uh, promotion on it, like put some money and make it into an ad. See how it works. I haven't done that. I've never done this kind of online ad. But it's funny because we took the decision. As usual, we always take the decisions around Christmas time. But that means that we started the year learning everything we could about startup acquisition, and you find so little information compared to the early stage of building a company. You can find so much information online about fundraising, about your first deck, about hiring your first people, about getting your first client, all these kind of first steps. You have a lot of content about it. The internet has so many things, almost too much, because you hear everything and anything. But then when you try to find some information about getting acquired, how to approach bigger organization, to talk about acquisition, suddenly you don't have that much content outside. You try to find fewer things and you try to understand what you don't know yet, which is always the case with every startup at every stage. You try to get what you don't get yet. So yeah, this has been the first thing was to find information, understand what I needed to know before we start talking to anyone about it. And talking to founders who've been through that has been quite helpful. And something I quickly realized is that it's a very personal experience, and it's not something that is easily reproducible, because I've spoken to a number of founders who told me how it happened for them, and usually there is a lot of serendipity to it, but also it's kind of unique experience that happen because different things came together at the right time. But it's not like something, no one really told me, oh, you need to do this and then that, and this is the process that I've done and it worked for me. And it was more like, okay, so we were in this situation and then we were speaking to this person, and this is how it happened. And so it wasn't like a process or a series of things to do, which is very interesting. But having the opportunity to be in touch with founders and founders who have either exited the company or tried to has been very interesting. As usual, you get so many different stories and so many different contradictory feedback. I guess that's always the case when you're looking for something specific. So we'll see how it goes. We've been talking to a number of people. The only thing is, it's just take a very long time, and I'm not really that patient, right? So we'll see how it goes. I really hope that maybe by talking about it more publicly, it can also create some new opportunities. So obviously, I reach out to a number of people and a number of specific companies that where I see a clear opportunity to work with them and to have to sell them our tech or the entire company. Um, but uh, but yeah, we'll. I think that by opening up to something more public and talking about it, I hope that maybe some people could also raise some interest, and people that I don't necessarily think about first. Maybe people in different industries saying, okay, so we're using game engines for simulation, for example, and we could use our technology to actually speed up our process so we don't have to build that from scratch. I mean, we're talking here about 2 years of development. We have two versions of our core technology. So yeah, the tech is here. It's all about finding how to explain the benefits of it. It's always the big question, right? Yinch, is the future course of action depend on who becomes your investors? Um, yes and no. So we really so the reasoning behind our current situation is that we don't want to be in the same situation as we are in a year. So we have spent the entire year talking to a large number of game studios and people, and we really see an interest right now, a rising interest, but it's just that the sales cycle are way too long. I mean, we've been talking to some people who have shown some interest, but they were also very upfront with us, saying this is not something that we're going to look into before 2 years or 1 year, or oh, we're gonna have a first meeting, but maybe the next one could be in 9 months, and you're like, well, that's a bit long, right? So it's just way too long, and adoption is very slow in video games. So looking that there is no big player that uses this technology, that makes a lot of noise about it, that could actually lead the way, we just don't want to be in the same situation. And right now, that's the best thing we can do. We've been thinking this over and over again, and by selling the company or the technology, that's the best way for it to be used, and to speed up maybe the adoption of machine learning in games. So it's a nice way. I think it would be a nice way of wrapping up the company and all the effort we put. It's just very hard to lead such a innovative thing in an industry that is a creative industry first. And so we managed to talk to the right people, and it's just their hands are tied, and they have limited budget, and lots of barriers. So even if we manage to talk to the right people, it just takes so long. And it's kind of also a cycle where, okay, we're small, but we manage to talk to bigger player. But even if we can agree today to work on a project together in 2 years, well, first, what do we do in this time? But also, how do we manage to grow to be able to tackle such a big project in 2 years? You know what I mean? It's like we're just too small for that. So yes, depending on who can acquire the company, that will change a lot of things, of course. But it's just like right now, we don't want to continue the way we're doing it. It just doesn't make sense. So yeah, we're quite flexible actually, on selling the company, whether it is about selling the asset, so just selling the tech, or selling the entire company. And kind of what kind of package it will look like. We have some thoughts, but we're actually open to discussions depending on the company we want to talk to. And yeah, the thing is, bigger players could be interested. It just takes ages. Just to find the right person, it takes a while, but then to talk to the people, and then take the discussion further. Yinch, are the package details published somewhere? No, they're not. They're not, because they're just open to discussion, and they're kind of obvious. It's like, okay, you could be interested in the company as a whole. So you get the tech, you get the name, whatever. Because of the size of the company, the company itself is actually mainly the tech, and then you have a few things associated with it. You could have me or my co-founder, maybe, if it's needed, or not, if you just want to get the tech, and maybe get your team to not start from scratch building something similar, and just start with good foundation, or that kind of things is also possible. So because we're flexible, there is not a clear publication somewhere with details about that. But yeah, that would be great for us to have some visibility on this. I'd love to also keep people updated on what it's like to be actively trying to sell your company, because lots of the stories I've heard were actually people who didn't necessarily reach out to other companies, but actually were in a situation where they were just open about the situation, and they had either clients or someone saying, oh, I want to acquire you. So it was kind of the other way around. So it's interesting to kind of be in the different position where you're like, okay, we're doing this, we think it could work for your company for this and this reason, but without knowing anything about how it works internally on the end, right? So you make assumptions, and you're like, okay, we think we could actually fit here and there, we could actually improve that, and then you just have to get feedback from them, confirmation on how you think that will actually work. Try to explain. And thing is, when you're selling a service, you focus on the benefits of your services. You focus not necessarily on the tech. And then what happened with us is usually we had a first meeting where we talk about, high level things like benefits, use cases. We kind of open many doors for people to understand the possibilities and how it could work with their own game. And then we usually had a second call where we deep dive into the technical aspect, where we ask every question possible to actually be able to quote what it would cost to actually do that and work together. But when you're trying to sell the company, you're mainly selling your technology, so you have to explain what people would be able to buy, and that's a different thing. That's I don't know if it's more technical, because it's not necessarily more technical at this stage. It's just a different discussion, but it's quite interesting. And in the end, it's exactly like when you're doing business development, in the sense that you have to understand how technical the people you're talking to are. And if they're not very technical, you have to focus more on your technology, but still make it approachable and easy to understand, which is, really hard when you're doing an AI startup, right? But it's quite fun. Maybe it's a bit long for my co-founder, but yeah. Yinch, I would like to have a meeting with Meta if you're still on the market in a month or two. Okay, sure, happy to chat. Let's have a chat even before that, and so I can better understand, your interest, and also why a month or two. I'm curious about that. But yeah, sure, why not? As I say, for me, the process is just taking ages, because I like when things go fast. But I understand that when you're talking to larger companies, it's acquisition are never really, really fast, right? Or when they are, it's just maybe luck. I don't know. Yeah. It's actually one of the really hard part is to find the right contact within different companies and understand if there is an opportunity or not. Don't want to harass people, or just absolutely want to get meetings with some companies. And at the same time, also doing some meetings, you want to talk about your tech, but you don't want to reveal too much. So yeah, there is a lot of luck in the process. That is so true. And for everything, even with business development, yes, experience plays a role. And when you have lots of experience with biz dev, there are lots of things that go smoother. But in the end, you have to arrive on the market at the right time with the right offer that fits your market. But also there are lots of things to take in consideration, and timing is an important aspect, and luck plays a big role for sure. But we'll see, yeah, we'll see. I'm waiting to write a post-mortem blog post, but I will do that at some point, if we sell the company, if we just just manage to sell the asset later on, whatever happened, I'll certainly at some point decide, okay, this is a date, and I'm writing a post-mortem blog post on that experience. Just the experience of building the company, the experience of trying to exit, all these kind of things. I think there's a lot of learning to that. But it's funny, because some people, when you mention that you're trying to sell, some people don't get it. I already had a meeting once where people didn't understand, and it was actually painful. But you have to drop the acquisition word. If you don't say acquisition. For some reason, people don't really get it. And I am very careful. The first few times, the first few meetings I had, I was like talking about, selling the company and selling the technology. But I realized really quickly that if you don't say acquisition, people don't get it, which is really odd. So there's a lot of learning in the process that has been quite interesting so far. So yeah, I definitely try to share that, and also just building the company for more than 2 years. A lot of learning into that too. I think we've moved quite fast, looking at other stories and other companies. Um, we pivoted after a year. Our core technology was ready quite fast for such a deep tech company. So yeah, no, there's a bunch of things that we could have done and we could do better, but so far, every time I have a meeting with my co-founder, every time we're like, at the time we took its decision, it was the best decision we could take. So um, no regrets at all. And so when some people are like, "Oh, that's so sad to hear that you were trying to sell," I'm like, "No, that's not sad at all. That's actually exciting because potentially our technology could be adopted so much faster. We could have actually an impact by selling the technology to a bigger player, to have this being used actually, right now. Um, and that's just kind of the natural life of a startup, right? So it's not sad. It's just exciting to go through another step. Yin should say revolutionary companies and revolutionary technologies have to fight hard to be heard and understood. Oh, yes. And have to be persuasive more than evolutionary tech. That's true. And you have to build your market because the market doesn't really exist quite often when you just do something very innovative. So you're always in the situation of chicken and egg problem where you see the value of your technology, but then your potential clients want to see real numbers, real effect. And so they want to see other people using it. But you can't show that until you have the first few customers that actually are happy to take this first risk to be the first to adopt your technology, and then you can tell the story and you can have real numbers on how it impacted them, and the benefits. So it's kind of yeah, it's a shitty circle, right, where you have to have some people that are ready to take the risk and also see the opportunity before the others. So you have to be persuasive, yes. Nobody wants to be first. That's so true. That's so true. Um, but some people do because otherwise we wouldn't have the technology we have, or some people find ways to finance their technology. Um, like for everything, if you had more money, you could do things that you can't do right now that maybe would change everything. Like if I take one meta for example, if we had a bunch of money early on, then we could have hired a few technical people, and pay for a really cool demo, like maybe a playable demo, and that's something that looks very nice, and maybe that would have convinced some people. But we didn't have this money, and we were only the two of us. So, but then, would it have changed really something? You never know, right? But obviously lots of money can really speed up adoption and really help with that, and also it can keep your company around for long enough to wait for the market to be ready. And I've seen that in other industries too, where some companies are very early, and so even if their technology is cool, they're still the first one in this space. So they have to do all the groundwork, to evangelize, explain the technology. But if you don't have the cash flow to stick around, and the motivation is key. But if you can't stick around for years and the market is not going to be ready for a certain amount of time, then you just have created the way, you have created the road for the next company to come along in a few years, but that would be at a better timing. And I've seen that in different companies I worked with and different industries also. But motivation is important because it's not just about having the money to stick around, it's about being okay to potentially be at the same stage next year and spend another year doing mostly evangelization and small improvements. And I think when you're a founder, that's actually very frustrating. And I was reading some I think it was on Twitter, something on Twitter, mentioning that founders don't and startups don't really run out of money, but they run out of founders' motivation. And well, yes, you do run out of money sometimes. I mean, it can happen, right? But that's right, that the founder's motivation is actually what is going to make you say, we are going to stick around and do whatever it takes to just maybe get this company at the smallest, like maybe be a smaller team, or make some sacrifices, or say, okay, we just shut down the company. And it's not just motivation, it's just about, is it what you want? Can you actually achieve your objective this way or not? And it's the day-to-day thing. Yinsh, you have to secretly be both the first and second company. That's right, yes. You have to be able to, well, once again, luck plays a big role, and timing also. So that's really hard to control, but yes, I can really get what you say. And you say, yes, a startup is the embodiment of a founder's dream. If they wake up too soon, the dream ends. That's correct. I like that. It's kind of sweet. It's very sweet. It's about waking up. It's really sweet because when you're a founder, you need a bit of disillusion, because otherwise you wouldn't just do it. I mean, when I started Wild Meta, if someone had told us that no, you can't raise money to do your B2C platform, you'll have to pivot, and even when you pivot, your customers will have such a long sales cycle, you're going to just spend a year just talking to your target audience, trying to get into their small papers, trying to get visibility in the ecosystem and everything. Like, if we knew that it would be such a pain over time, and if we knew that what was expecting us, I don't think we would have started the company. And I'm sure the same for all founders. You kind of need a bit of naivety when you start a company, because if you don't, no one else will. That's actually the role of your advisors and potential investors, to be more down to earth, and trying to well, put you out of your disillusion. But when you're a founder, you really need to have faith and to believe, and to be like, no, I really believe in what we're doing. So that's a key part. But yes, when you wake up, that's the end, right? And that's okay. I don't think that's necessarily good or bad, or there may be lots of reason for companies and for founders to move on. I've seen actually some founders, just having all the project and just think, I can't split my time, right? So let's just focus on other things. I've seen many things like that. So, yeah, no, it's just not easy to be a founder, but it's quite addictive in the same time. Something that I always had a problem with, and for the first time when I had my own startup, it wasn't a problem anymore. Is to be very involved in whatever I do. I'm 100%, and so I think being a founder really fits that, because you're like, that's my company. I have to make the decisions, and so That's okay to be 100% into it and to think about it all the time, and that's fine. The problem is when you do that and it's not your company, and it's harder to take a step back. And I feel that having your own company, being a founder, and then maybe having like working for someone else for a while, that's maybe the hardest thing, to manage to take a step back and realize, no, that's not my company. That was my company. This is not my company anymore. I need to, take a step back and breathe, and not think about it at night. That shouldn't happen. I know I'm terrible at that, so. I don't know for you, Yinch. Do you have how long have you been building your company? How long have you been a founder? I think it's been a while, right? Yeah, Yinch is typing. Playco is older than Facebook. Oh wow, yes. But that's great. I mean, I am so happy that you managed to, to be around for that long, because that's difficult. That's the difficulty, to stick around for adoption, but also to still be excited by what you're doing. Yin, she said, I call Playco the world's oldest startup. Yeah. You say we've been 8 different startups in that time, I guess. Oh, that's nice. Well, when you pivot, it actually feels like you're starting from scratch. I had that last year in January when we pivoted. There, in many ways, I felt like I was starting from scratch, not on the technical aspects, but on everything else. Reaching out to people, you have to have a different narrative, you have to test your new narrative, you have to get feedback, you have to test your new model, um, you have to change your image. Everything you do online has to reflect your new decisions. So it really feels like starting a company from scratch again, right? So I think that's maybe the secret, right? To run your company for so long, you kind of always have to reinvent yourself, and that's the best way to manage to stay around. You say even in the last 4 years, we pivoted from desktop VR to web VR. Right? Yes. How was this pivot for you? Was it an easy one? Because it's still the same technology, it's just not on the same device, or was it still a pain, and the same thing everyone is going through when pivoting their business? Say small companies have to be agile. It is our only chance. That's so true. Yes, yes, and that's our big advantage. Also, why are there different type of companies, and why startups are also so attractive and so interesting as a founder is because you can move fast. You have to adapt, and you have to be constantly listening to the market, see what you're doing, if see if it fits the market, if there is something else to do. So you always have to be listening, and there is no comfortable situation, or it doesn't happen that often, because you're constantly trying to evolve and change things. You say it was a significant change. You had to change the platform away from Unity, and it has led to the biggest opportunity you ever encountered. Cool, that's pretty nice. Oh, I love that. You said 2 years ago you started internal restructuring. Okay, nice. I'm really glad to hear that, because it's always a risk to pivot your business. I mean, you never know if it's going to actually take off, or if it's still going to have the same problem as before. You're kind of thinking, okay, this is our situation. If we pivot and we do this instead of that should solve this and this problem. And so now you'll have more problems, different problems, but you should have solved the previous ones. And it's kind of a bet also, an educated bet, because it's your company and it's your industry, and hopefully you have done that with feedback from the industry and from listening to your ecosystem. But still, until you've done it, you don't really know what's going to be the reception of this new approach. So you say you have done the internal restructuring to acknowledge different objects, and you don't know if the pivot will save you or going to kill you. Exactly, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? So you're taking a bet, because even if you're excited by this new pivot, then it may not work. I mean, some companies are just shutting down because they've done the wrong move. Maybe if they have stick to the first idea, that's the thing when you're building your own company. You never know. You never know if what you're doing is the right thing to do. And so, yes, we have to move fast, but also I know that I wondered many times over the past 2 years, are we trying to go too fast? Are we not giving it the time to work? It's a bit like habits. When you're trying a new habit, or let's say you're trying to eat healthier or do sports or whatever, and then you don't see any effect immediately because it takes time to build the habits and to see any effect, and you just discard it just because you don't see any effect fast enough. I feel that's kind of the same with startups, where yes, you know that you have to move fast because you don't want to waste time in a direction that is a dead end. So you always want to rethink the way you're doing things, but in the same time, you don't know how much time you need to give to an idea or to a strategy before changing things. And so it's you never know, and you have no way of really knowing if what you're doing is the right thing to do, and if changing is going to be better or not. So you kind of try to make your assumptions together. You put your assumptions together and you try to quantify the changes. You try to de-risk it as much as possible, but in the end, you can't really. You have to one day make a call and say, okay, let's go to this direction. Yinchi say that you pivoted to WebXR in the last year, and it has changed everything. That's so nice to hear, really. And you say your successful startups are a measure of surviving failures. That's the only difference. Yes, they aren't always the biggest, smartest, or wealthiest. They are the toughest, who stay in the fight after losing 10 times in a row. Exactly, and that's how the motivation of the founders is key there, because if you're not ready to go through at least 10 times what you've been through already, then it's not worth going further. So yes, no, that's exactly it. It's about sticking around, being ready to stick your head again and to be hit again potentially by difficulties, because this is going to happen. And you say it's hard to do, though. I hear so many stories of founders losing their house and living in their cars for a few months. Yes, and that's when it's important to also sometimes just wonder if it's actually going to work and if it's worth it. When I see people taking such a risk, losing their house, living in their car, this kind of stories, I find this frightening, because yes, you believe in your idea and in your project, but you can't run your company properly and make proper decision if you are yourself not in a safe situation. So we hear more and more about founders' mental health and founders' psychology, and that's for a good reason. And really, I think that if you want to run a successful company and to make your company successful, you need to be able to focus on it. And that means not having to think that, oh, maybe you're going to lose your house and move your family to a very unstable situation. You need to have a stable life to start your business, and to be able to continue running a business. Um, I know that I wouldn't have started my company a few years before what I did, just because when I decided to go full time on the company, I knew that I had certain amount of runway. And when I actually had a job just before, and when I lost the job, I was like, do I go full time or not? And I decided to go full time because I knew that it was okay, my runway was long enough, and if needed, I could do other things on the side to earn a bit of money. Um, but that's a big commitment, and especially if you have family, or if you have people who are depending on you, that's tough. And I don't think that anyone should actually put themselves in such extreme situation. It's great to be dedicated, but you don't put your own life in danger for that. Because I feel that if you're willing to bet everything on just your company, yes, you do believe in it, but in the same time, maybe you're too delusional or desperate to actually take a step back and look at what you're doing. And that is key. When you have your company, you need to really be able to regularly look at what you're doing, not from an emotional perspective, but from a business perspective. Does it make sense? Put yourself in your customer's shoes. Does it make sense? In your investor's shoes, in everyone else's shoes, to try to look at your business from a different perspective. So yes, you do have more information and no one knows about it more than you do, but in the same time, you have to have all the hopes and faith on it. But you also have to be able to be down to earth some days and think, okay, am I going to hit a wall? And is it worth risking my whole health and life for it? And the answer is usually no. Doesn't make sense. Ian, you can't always tell if you're brilliant or crazy. They both behavior in conventional ways. That's so true. Yes, it's really, the limit is really thin. Having a co-founder is important, just to have another voice in mind. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Unless your co-founder and you are really on the same page and two psychopaths, which is possible. But yeah, having a co-founder is usually important, just to have different perspective. And I've seen many co-founders actually not being, well, being on the same page, but not agreeing on a lot of things. And it can be healthy. I know that on the day-to-day it can be exhausting, to have small fights with your co-founder regularly on the priorities, the next steps. I know that is something we actually haven't had with my co-founder at all, because we know each other really well for many years. And we've always been on the same page with everything. But is it best? Sometimes having differences, having different opinions can also help with some decision. And yeah, that's also why so many startup fail sometimes. One of the major cause of failure is having the founders not working well together. But that's the kind of things, it's also help build a solid foundation for the company. And if you don't have a co-founder, that's not the end of the world. But it's important to have people you can rely on to help you go down to earth and stay here with them. You know what I mean? That's why it's important to, maybe instead of having co-founders, because not everyone, maybe you want to start your project without having a co-founder, but that's why having maybe some advisors, or an unofficial board of advisor, or whatever, some friends that you can ask questions to, or some mentors, or whatever the setup, having just people who can just give you unfiltered feedback and brainstorm with you and give you the not be supporting you because you say something and they're going to support everything you say, but people who are actually ready to have a different opinion and maybe argue with you on some things. You should say having a differing opinion helps to review accountability. That's true, yes. I sometimes say listen to your critics, they won't lie to you. Yeah, your friends might not report all you need to know to succeed to spur your feeling. Friends must be the worst in this situation. It's a bit like if you ask your mom. No one wants to ask their mom about the business. Doesn't make sense, right? I mean, especially if you're building a tech business, unless they're experts in the domain, you don't want to ask your family because they don't really care. I mean, they care about you being happy, but then they don't really care about your business or what it is, what it does really. Is there an opportunity or not? So don't ask your friend. Ask people who don't have any interest in you or in what you do, and people who are just going to be bland. Yinch, you should start a startup consultancy called Not Your Mom. Ah, that's so true. I know that I can be yeah, quite blunt sometimes. So definitely that would be a nice thing. Actually, I have my Buy Me a Coffee page where I have some consulting sessions. I should rebrand that and call it Not Your Mom. Like blend feedback, not your mom. That would be fun. Hi there. We have a few more people coming um, on the chat. And welcome to you. You are Japanese. I can't pronounce your name. Can you tell us how to pronounce your name? I see Mik, but I'm not sure. So feel free to put in the comment how you would pronounce your name. I actually need to get more water. Give me 2 seconds and I'll be back in 2 seconds. And yeah, I think about that. A consultancy like a call or something. Not your mom. I love the idea. Give me 2 secs. I'm coming back after I get some water. And I'm back. Hi, Meekn. Meekn maybe. Meek. I'm really bad at that, but thanks for precising, like for putting the pronunciation of your name. Good question from Yinch. Are you in Japan? Must be quite late for you then. Nice to see lots of people coming from different places. That's what I love about live streaming. Have a discussion and then you have lots of people coming from all over the world. I mean, You and I are in the UK, but it's so nice to sometimes see people coming from different countries and even sharing their own experience because, yeah, as founders in the UK, we definitely have different experiences from people that are not in the country and that may be quite far away. I know that today we were supposed to do a Korea Tech um, stream, and I was looking for so many like tutorials yesterday, and I thought, well, tutorials are great, but when you're tired, that may not be the best thing to do. You know, that maybe a bit demanding, or maybe there's other ways to create, to learn something new, especially when we talk about some creative stuff. Maybe there's different ways to learn. I don't know. And I ended up on, don't ask me how, I ended up on the platform from LinkedIn. What's the name? It's Linda. I think it's Linda. Can I find it? Where is it? I'm sure it was open somewhere. Maybe not. And yeah, it's Lydia. Okay. It was really odd, a very odd experience. Let me check. Lydia. LinkedIn. You know, I was looking for inspiration. I was thinking, oh, maybe the best way when I'm looking to learn something new, quite often I go on Twitter or no, not on Twitter, on YouTube for inspiration and to learn some things. But you really need to know exactly what you want to learn. So something I've been doing also is every year. About once a year, maybe less now, but I used to take online courses on different platforms, on different topics, just to keep learning new things. And so I thought, oh, maybe there are also some more creative things. I remember once I was following a course, I think it was on Coursera, to learn to play the guitar, but it was more on the theory, so it was quite interesting. It was it was a bit odd, but it was interesting. A bit hard to get into. Quite often, I had to pause the video a lot, so I don't think it was the right pace, but it was very interesting. And so I thought maybe there's lots of online courses that I'm not thinking of that could also be interesting. You know, usually I don't know for you, how do you learn new skills and new creative skills? Oh, Yinch, you actually said that you have been using Blender a bit this week. Nice. I've seen lots of tutorials on Blender. I think I've used it once or twice. Um, it's you say you hate it. Yeah. Um, Given that I've been quite tired recently, I have found a bunch of tutorials on Blender, and every time I'm like, I don't want to do that this week. I don't want to do that on stream because that's complex, and then I'm always pushing it back because I know that Blender is complex and it's not the most user friendly piece of software ever, so I'm always pushing it back. It's really cool what you can do with it, but yeah, it's you say it's terrible. Is it that bad? I need to try out then. Now that you said that it's terrible, I want to try out. You know, initially I was like, okay, I'm sure it's going to be something really cool. You need to really get into how to use it, but once you know how to use it, then that's okay. But now that you're saying it's terrible, oh, I really want to try it out. You say everyone tells you that you need to watch tutorials. Yeah, I mean that's the way to go, right? It's so hard to get into it. So what I usually do when I try to learn a new tool, I usually come up with a project I want to create that uses this tool, and so then I just try to do it on my own, and I look for specific information on how to do this step and this step. But that's not, it requires, it's really demanding to come up with an idea with a project. I'm not the most creative person, and I'm like, these days I don't have a specific project I want to build. with the kind of tools I want to learn. So yeah, Blender is a good one, but that seems so complex. Every time I want to get into it, I'm like, I don't have a specific project in mind I want to create using Blender. It's not like, oh, I want to create something for my company, I need to create some assets. I'm going to learn to use this tool because I want to create this specific asset. And that's usually the mindset I have that really motivates me to get into a new tool. You say you ended up having to watch tutorials to do such simple thing. You lost an hour trying to rescale some vertices, some point, some okay from a selected center point. You should have taken 5 seconds, and you only use Blender when you have no choice. Yeah, I've learned that it's pretty hard to just do simple things. I think that should take 2 clicks. That's a nightmare. So I need to get into it at some point. But yeah, I was browsing LinkedIn. Well, I ended up on LinkedIn on Lydia. I think they rebranded actually on LinkedIn Learning. I don't know, and it's funny because they offer you courses linked to your own profile. So when I see the screen, I'm on it right now, and it says search for the most popular skills for a chief executive officer, because I guess that's my title on LinkedIn. And so like, what are the skills you need to learn to be a CEO? Tell me please, LinkedIn. I was like, oh, okay, so what are you going to show me for a CEO? So I have some stuff on business development, entrepreneurship, social media marketing, sales management, a bit of everything. I was like, okay. But then I was curious to see the smaller format and the popular on LinkedIn. And I was like, what do people learn on this platform? And it's actually quite funny. So the first thing LinkedIn tells me, the most popular LinkedIn learning course is on creating personal connections, which is funny because when you're on LinkedIn, you already have started connecting with people, right? So yeah, I don't know. Have you ever used that? I use platforms like Coursera and other platforms, EDX also. So I use many of these like online courses platform for years, really for a very, very long time. I remember when I was still a student and I came across this MOOC, massive open online courses, and I was like, that's amazing. I remember I was a student, I was bored in class, and someone introduced me to that, and I was like, oh, I can learn everything and anything, and I can learn so many new things. Well, it takes lots of time, and so that was tricky, but over the years I've always kept that in mind, and I always try to regularly keep learning new things. I had some good courses, some less good courses. I remember once I found it very hard to find courses that were about investment and like startup investment, like venture capital. But I wanted to learn more about the financial aspect and financial modeling, and everything I was about to find were very much theoric and not applied to the startup ecosystem. So you needed to have huge amount of data. So that's something that will apply to large corporation, but not something that I could transfer to the startup ecosystem. So I found it really hard to find what I wanted. But I know that as soon as I have more time, which is not going to happen soon, but I will definitely do more of these courses, just because it's stimulating, but you just need to find the right courses. And I'm wondering, for the more creative stuff, is it really the platform people go into? If you're looking for like financials or business classes, that works. But if you're looking for more creative things, does it really work too? Because I don't really have such a great memory of the course I took on the guitar theory. Just maybe because guitar theory was a bit ambitious for me. Ian should say, you think finding someone that matches your style is important? They should make a recommendation based on how many overlap lacked you have with the instructor. Oh, yes, maybe, yeah. Profile matching is missing in search results. There's the masterclass website. Oh, yeah, I remember seeing some ads on that. I have never tried it, but I remember on YouTube at some point there were so many ads. I think it was for cooking classes. I've seen so many ads. I've never tried. Have you tried masterclass? Is it any good? Masterclass. What do they have on that? Because having, as I said, having specific project requires first to come up with a project idea, and that could be interesting. I mean, I could do that for our creative streams where I come up with a project, but we do over time, we build that over time. But at the moment, I'm not excited by any specific project. I don't need anything on the tech aspect that would require to build something new. Like I remember once I wanted to have a specific app, I wanted to use it myself, and I tried to learn to do it. Didn't work out in the end, but I had a real motivation. Right now, I don't have any motivation for a real tool or a real thing, so I'm thinking, that could be interesting to try different classes online. So I am on the masterclass website. They are advertising people more than the courses. Oh, the design is very different from what I usually see on this kind of website. So the trendings are learn by doing in 30 days. It doesn't say what you're learning to do. Okay, next. I don't understand. What's the topics? There is one on teaching collaboration and fashion. What are they going to talk about? Interesting. So I think it's celebrity. Oh yeah, that's what you say, Inch. It's high profile celebrity experts. Okay. Is it any good? You said you like the production values. Okay. Yeah, because it's celebrities, you don't have like people in a empty classroom giving the course or something on the green screen. You actually have a real set, and I guess it looks good, right? Interesting. Yeah, I'm just wondering what these courses are really about. But it seems quite interesting, especially for more creative topics, right? So you have things around music, sports. What do we have in science? No. It's also expensive, more expensive than other platforms. It's like £40 a month. So you have to pay a monthly fee, which is interesting. Okay. But for £14, you have access to the entire website. So that makes sense if you're interested in more than one, right? You pay for one because you're interested in one, and then you just move on and learn new things on different topics. Okay, it's very interesting, the topic. You don't really get what you're going to learn, so okay, I need to check this out a bit further. I remember spending so much time on Coursera. I think it's a very good platform for learning new things, because it really works like a course. So it's not a 1 hour thing, so you really need to dedicate a bit more time. But you do have certificates, and I think you do have also shorter courses, and it's all free. So if you want to pay for the certificate, or no, maybe it's not all free, but many are free, and you just pay for the certificate, I think. So it's I really like that. The fact that it's very open. The difficulty is to judge if you're going to learn what you want, but it's very much business oriented. So I'm wondering what the best way to learn new creative things. Yinch, do you use anything? Is anyone doing anything when you're trying to learn something new, like new skills or just learn something? I think right now I usually go on YouTube, but I need first to know exactly what I want. Like it's not going to recommend me something from scratch that I didn't think about because it's based on my own search history, and so if I don't research a topic, I don't know. It's not going to be like, it's not great for inspiration. It's great to understand how to do something. But yeah, so YouTube is good once you have the idea how to get inspired. The news is not that inspiring these days. So yeah, didn't you say you find something that is fun? Fun. Yes, okay. Everyone has a very different definition of fun. But yeah, okay, so you first find something that is fun, and then you usually start searching for solution to a specific question. Okay. So from question to question, you get to get a deeper understanding of the topic, right? Oh, like that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, you also been doing some VR painting and modeling. That's pretty cool. And you say you build in until you get stuck, and then you go look for tutorial. Yeah, I do that too. Usually I come up with an idea, something I want to try out, something I want to do. I think about the end result I want, and then I try to do it, and if I hit a wall, if I get stuck, I try to find some information. But the difficult part, I think, to that is to, if you're starting doing something that you don't really know, let's say you want to develop something in a new development language or whatever. Well, I said that because I'm a very beginner developer. I barely don't know anything on that. But like how do you size your project? How do you I find that the difficulty in that is to find the project that the idea, that you can do it, and that you have the skills to do it. Like, yes, you can do that using this, so you need to understand already a lot about it, to first be able to come up with the idea, and then you have to already have enough knowledge to actually be able to say, yes, I can do it with my level of expertise. Because if you run into a wall after 5 minutes because you realize that, once you have set up the environment, you don't know anything about how to move on. It's what happened when I tried to create an app. I was following some tutorials, and what I wanted to do was very different, and then I couldn't just pass what was in the tutorial itself. I didn't have the knowledge to just try something on my own, so that was a bit frustrating. And I remember asking for help from my partner. He came in, and it was he's very good. So for him, he started doing lots of things, and I kind of lost track of what was going on really quickly. So it wasn't the best. So yeah, it's all about finding a project that is small enough that you can do it, but big enough that it's interesting, and you can actually achieve something. Hi, Polly. Hi, nice to meet you. How are you? So yeah, we'll see for the future creative tech stream. I don't know. Yeah, you mentioned the VTuber tutorial you sent before. That would be a fun one. I have actually created a VTuber in the past, so it would be fun to compare both of them. Um, the only thing with that is I need to prepare a bit on this, and that's why today I decided not to do it, even if I find your video interesting, because I need to do a bit of test with the setup because it takes your camera to do that. And so if I'm using my camera for the VTuber, then I can't use my camera to be on the stream. And then if I want to display both or to alternate between the VTuber system you sent me and the one I already created, I'm wondering if I can actually do that smoothly or not. So I need to do some testing on the camera, see what I can do, and if I can make the other camera work. I don't know. I still haven't managed to make it work. I mean, I'm still waiting for the update on the code. So yeah. So I definitely want to do that. That could be fun to do. It's just I need to do a bit of prep on that. But yes, some VTuber tutorial can be fun. And then I'm wondering, should we keep doing different tutorials, like different tools? You mentioned Blender. That's something I want to try out. Blender, maybe more of After Effects, some Photoshop stuff. Or should we stick to something more techy or something that is more of a one project we try to build over time? I don't know. I'm wondering about that. If actually doing some tutorials is enough. I mean, is interesting enough, and if it's something that we can learn from, or not. I mean, I don't know. Because what matters is also what you do after you've done the tutorial, right? Can you use that again? Is it just a 10-minute thing and then you forget about it? I don't know. Polly, you are from Brazil and you're studying English. Well, welcome to you, and hope you're doing well this weekend. It's still, well, it's earlier for you than it is for me here, but yeah, hope everything is going well. Am I losing my English? Yeah. We've been up for almost 2 hours now. That's crazy how time flies. I said just before starting the stream, I said, and even on Discord, I said, oh yeah, that's going to be a short stream. And here we are. And also, thank you to Matthias for your subscribe on YouTube. I don't know why it's not appearing on the screen. It should be. But it should be. Not sure why not. Maybe it's going to come in a few minutes. I don't know. But yeah, next week will actually be a gaming stream. I know these streams are not the most popular on the channel, but I like that. I like that every month I get to try a new game and I have an excuse to play a game. I miss that so much. I've actually been playing a bit on my phone and on my DS over the past few days. But yeah, sitting down with a real game, getting into it. So I don't know yet which game we'll be playing, but I have some ideas in mind. I don't know if it's possible. So I need to test out. I need to see if the servers are working really and if it's possible to get in the game. But if it is, that could be quite fun to try something. I don't know, something new. So yeah, that's going to be about it for next week. And then we have a guest for our monthly AMA with a startup founder. That's going to be early March. I think it's the week after next. So yes, that's it. Next week is gaming. The week after is our guest. And that's going to be quite interesting. I have already secured our guest. So now I just need to find one for the month after, which is April. That's fine. I have plenty of time for that. For April, I need to focus on getting a woman on the stream because we have already had 3 men since the start of the year, and I don't want to have only men on the interview. So I need to work on that. But yeah, that's going to be quite interesting. The next guest, that's someone that we've already seen on the stream, but with a different company. So I have so many questions for him, and he has been also sharing some interesting things online recently, especially around mental health for founders. So I have a bunch of questions also for him on that. That's I'm sure that's going to be a very interesting stream. I know he likes to talk also, so it's always good when you know that people are can talk, and you're going to be in for a great conversation. So I'm really really looking forward to it. uh, it's it's really motivating. I always have people asking me about the live AMAs and why I'm doing that, and it can be a bit obscure, but it's just so exciting to be talking to someone, to be talking to a founder, and just deep dive on their own experience, how they, what they're facing, um, what their own story is about, and not just once they're already famous or successful, or when it's the early days and they still can open up on the small things that are going well or not. So I really love that, and I wish I could do more, but I don't have the bandwidth. There is no way I could come up with more founders and prepare more of these. I barely have the time to do the marketing. I need to do more on that to grow the channel, but you know what? That's okay. I mean, we have such a nice community on Discord and on social media and everywhere. That's enough. You know what I mean? Yes, that would be amazing if we had more people coming in, asking questions to our guests, and having more values and an interesting question to ask. But at the same time, it's okay to have a small community and to just have a few friends in the Discord, and it's okay if it's not growing super fast. But I need to put some work on that. Yinch, he asked, how is your new job? Yeah, so I'm doing some consulting right now for a friend, and yeah, it's going well. It's going well. It's exciting. It's busy, but yeah, that's pretty cool. Actually, when I mentioned earlier how hard it can be when you're a founder to actually work for someone else and then try to think about what they're doing, but try to take a step back and try to stop thinking about it all the time. That's exactly the situation that I am in right now. That's the difficulty of taking a step back, in the sense that trying to remember that's not my company. I'm just helping out. That's not my business. And I have such I'm struggling with that. I'm waking up on during the night thinking about it, and I'm like, shut up, my brain, please stop that, because that's not my company. I shouldn't care about it. I shouldn't be stressing so much about it. And it's about trying to just, I don't know, I guess I am slowly becoming a recovering founder. Where you have been not traumatized, but kind of when you're used to be 100% into whatever you do. And I had the same problem before building my own company, but I think it's worse now. You're so used to be on the top of things, driving the boat, that it's hard not to be like that. Yinch, founder Alcoholic Anonymous. That's exactly that. Yes. And I remember a while ago, years ago, seeing some people mentioning online, oh, I am a recovering founder. No, that's a thing. I'm not kidding. That's a thing. Well, even though I am technically still a founder, when you make the decision to sell your company, you can already have a fit out whatever happens, if whether you going to sell the company including yourself, and so you're going to join whoever acquires the company, or if um, you're going to sell just the assets and the technology, and so you're not going to be joining them, but just you're not part of the deal. Whatever happens, you still have a fit out as soon as you decide that. It's a bit like when you have a job, and you're happy or not happy, whatever. But the day you start sending your CV to other companies, that's kind of the day where you're already out, and that's already too late. And that's why that's kind of funny when you see, companies trying to offer at the last minute maybe an increase, a pay raise. It's already too late because you have already given your what's the name for that? I don't get the right words. I'm just tired. The English words don't come out. What's the name for that? When you give your notice. When you give your notice. Yeah. So that's already way too late. As soon as you start sending your CV to someone, you're already out. And when you're a founder, as soon as you are, you have made the decision that you're going to exit the company or sell the company, whatever, you're already out. And so it's in my head, I'm already a recovering founder. Trying to, but I know that I was never a good employee before, and that's because of the traits that are a good thing for founders. These kind of things where you really care about what you do, and about doing it well, and about working with people who are smart and useful, and all these kind of things. That's yeah. Founder relic anonymous. I really like that because you do have lots of communities around founders, but it's actually funnier to talk to people who've already built some companies, and or maybe not first time founders. As soon as you gain a bit of experience and you're like, okay, yeah, I've been through that. And so yeah, that would be really nice. I don't even know if there is such communities for former founders, but I am in a community where it's funny because it's anonymous, so it's like technically it's not fully anonymous, but it's like really anonymous in the sense that people don't see information about you, and you're not supposed to use your real name or give information about you personally. And so it's all about founders talking about the experience and asking for feedback. And so you can see really quickly the first time founders who are just getting started and are still at quite an early stage, and the founders who have a bit more experience and can share this experience. And because it's anonymous, people don't necessarily have the filters they usually have. So there is no bullshit, and it's really straightforward. You ask a question, you get some answer. And I find it really nice because people open up really, especially people who have more experience. They really open up on what they've done, what to be careful with, and actually I check this Slack channel several times a week just because at the moment. So that's the thing with communities. You need to find communities that match with what you need today, and then it changes over time. So these days I find it very useful just because it's so nice to have this honest chat with people. And since the pandemic, most of the communities I used to be involved in have died out. They used to be very active, and now it's crap. Really, no one is really on it. From time to time, someone is going to put something on it, but that's no one is going to answer. It's really really odd. So it's nice to see one community where once there is no bullshit, but two also that is active and people want to share their own experience. That really helps. And since the beginning of the pandemic, that's something that I have really struggled to find, because initially everyone went online, so every community, it made sense for them to move online from a physical place to online. And I don't know what happened, But initially, like the first few months, everyone was active there, and pretty quickly, nothing was going on. I don't know what happened, but that would happen for most of the online communities I was involved in. So, apart from a few domain specific communities, most of the startup ecosystem I used to be involved in is just not active anymore. Ian, she said anonymity improves clarity and honesty. Yeah, that's so true. It really helps, especially because it's also not a fully um, open channel. So you really have to be a founder to be there. They cannot check, um, but then no one knows who's behind which names. So it's pretty nice. It's a friend of mine who's doing that, and it's related to his platform called Landscape. So Landscape is kind of a glass door for VC. So basically, you can find um, information about different investors, different VCs in the UK, and so you just can put some reviews also, and about your experience. Are they fast to reply? Is there any warnings? Is there, these kind of things? So related to that, they created this anonymous community, and I haven't seen anonymous Slack channel before. So apart from Reddit, that gives you anonymity, most of the modern platforms don't really have that in mind. And so when I discovered it, when they created the channel, I found it so nice. So it was like fresh, fresh ideas, and I really like the vibe. It's not really negative, but you do have some people sometimes who just need to get stuff out, and you see that we all have the same problems as founders, the same frustrations, even if it's different stages, different industries. We all have the same kind of frustrations, and the same steps that we're going through. Sometimes it's just so nice just to go there and vent, and you need to get something out of your system, and you just want to say it out loud to people who get it, because well, people around you might not get it, or sometimes you don't know who to turn to speak to. So it's I find it really important, to be able to have such communities, and every community should be so welcoming. But yeah, lately I find it difficult. I didn't find it very engaging to be active on online communities recently. Maybe it's just my own situation, and I didn't find anyone that was a good match. Maybe that's just it. It's all about timing also for communities. You want to be involved in a community, but at a time where it can offer you something that you are looking for, and that's not always easy to know once you join them. But yeah, everything has been very quiet. I'm also on a bunch of Discords, but I really struggle keeping up to date with Discord and all the different groups. There's so many discussions. You have so many rooms per Discord group. Also, I join most of them related to the game industry, but it's actually game developers there. So people who really create and develop the game. No one wants to talk about tech. So it's more about creative discussions, not that much tech discussions. So since I am losing my English, I think I'm going to call it a day for today. I may just fall asleep on my couch, to be honest, for this afternoon. I really hope that tomorrow I'll be back on my feet, just after maybe a good night of sleep or something, because I really need to prep my talk. It's for One Tech World, so it's related to the We Are the City, which gave me an award last year, and I'm just going to talk about my own experience as a founder. So, what it's like to be creating a deep tech startup in a creative industry, and chatting today also make me think about some ideas for this talk. So, just need to get my head around it find the angle, the right way of doing it. And yeah, I'm going to work on that this weekend, but I think not today. I just may fall asleep for the second or third time today. But yeah, always a pleasure to speak with you all. Welcome to the few people who have been joining the channels, whether it is on YouTube or Twitch. So thank you to Matthias and Polly for your follow, respectively, on YouTube and Twitch. I hope I'll see you around. So as I said, next week we'll have a gaming stream on Saturday, and the week after it's going to be Friday mid-afternoon, and we're going to have a guest. And you can ask any questions by just tapping on the chat to our guest. So I'm going to announce it on my social media, and if you haven't joined the Discord, feel free to do so, because that's a nice way just to keep in touch between the stream, and also share some stuff about your own project and what you're working on. So that's it for me for today. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Yinch. Have a lovely weekend, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Bye.